Okay. Okay, can everybody see my screen okay? Thank you. And I have a little timer here because I do have a lot of slides, so I want to get through them pretty quickly. Am I all set to go? Are we good? Okay, great. So nice to meet everybody. Thank you for having us. We're going to talk a little bit about AI and institutional policies. Um, Essentially, we're going to cover a couple of areas, just a brief introduction, some ethical considerations and classroom implementations where we'll spend some of our time, and then our recent findings from Gormier, I think is how you say, and Edwards. And then we'll kind of end with a little bit about challenges and opportunities. So we all know that AI technology is an effective tool, and it's in our education and it's in our workforce now. Um, Basically, it's leading educators now are in a special place that we need to start to examine this a little bit more closely, right? It's no longer just like, oh, we're using Chat GPT in the classroom. It's we have to start to take this a little bit more serious. It's significant, strategic significance of AI in education has also progressively helped our values, that kind of education workforce connection. Universities today, they are, facing a lot of challenges and what is considered ethical usage of AI technology. And some of the things that they really have been starting to look closely at is pedagogical perspective and then academic integrity. And those have been two areas with a lot of focus. But again, using generative AI or just artificial intelligence in general in the classroom or in institutions is a lot bigger than just that. So our goal here was to kind of look at different policies throughout universities. We looked at universities within the United States. There's not a lot of information, believe it or not. A lot of it is more geared towards plagiarism. And then what we did next is we started to review literature and take a look at what some of the scholars were seeing. And we kind of brought this together in the early stages of our research, brought it together in this presentation. So I have here, AI has set a new pace for global competitiveness, sparking a paradigm shift in instructional methods for both learning and teaching. So the impact is really throughout education. So another thing that's very important, and I think why there's been, or I should say why we thought there was so much of a driver with AI, was its connection from education to workforce. So our workforce is using this technology. So it puts educators in a position, to do something about it, to also use it too. I don't know if Dr. Powell, you wanted to add a little bit, because I know you have a lot of experience with workforce connection and education.
Yeah, just real quick, like, so for example, accounting, a lot of the accountants are now using AI, and their accounting companies are paying for AI to be developed specifically for their company on audits. So there's a specific way a company would do an audit. The AI would go through, provide the very basic stuff for it. And so then again, it's being written in the way that the company likes. And then again, it's saving the accountant from doing some of the mundane tasks and moving to much more higher level of task. So we see a lot of that happening within the accounting fields and business fields.
And then even adding to that outside business fields, we have our healthcare, right? We use a lot of artificial intelligence now to help us with that. And even if you look at other fields like the arts, museum curation, different things like that are using this type of technology to help, whether it's image recreation, or data analysis in different areas like that. So it's something that we have to consider because it's also what the workforce is demanding. And if you kind of start to research this a little bit, we've coined in the workforce industry 4.0. And basically, it's smart systems emphasize the need to shift from focusing on automation, which is what we're kind of used to of thinking of AI, right? Kind of like that automation. You walk into the supermarket and things are now automated, or maybe something online. But now we're shifting more towards what we call intelligent collaboration, because the technology is becoming so advanced. And it's this collaboration now between humans and machines. Therefore, as educators, we really have to think about upskilling and reskilling the pedagogy. Now, we wanted to really look at what type of policies existed out there. And again, it was more of a survey of literature, and a survey of what some universities had out there. And a couple of things that came to mind was ethical consideration, and then implementation of artificial intelligence into the classroom. When we looked at ethical consideration, we noticed a trend where there was a lot of focus on policy with bias, displacement, and decision making. And I make a note down here, there's more to consider. There's a ton, right, of things to consider as we start going into this type of technology. Now, when we break down these three and we look at bias, bias is always a concern. I think it's a concern also for any industry. But from an educational policy perspective, it was looking more at admissions criteria. And if anyone's ever applied for a job, you know how the HR thing goes. You go online, it feels like it goes out to the cyberspace, and then there's algorithms that will scan your cover letter, your resume. Well, it's kind of the same thing what they're trying to do with the admission process. So there was a real big concern among administration if admissions, if there was any bias in that. And then, of course, the other aspect to it is the teaching, which is the grading procedures. Could there be bias in those grading procedures? So the policies that we saw out there, they wanted to ensure that AI teaching tools provided impartial assessments and feedback to students, which was very important. And the idea was to avoid reinforcing any type of biases we might have in our teaching. The last thing it was that kind of controls all this is the transparency of algorithms. And I think I have that in another slide. So remember, AI is as good as the individuals that are building these systems. So how do you kind of create a, I guess, a safe framework that eliminates these biases? There was also displacement of human educators. And again, this wasn't just for education. When you really narrow down and look at displacement, that's for all industries. All industries will be affected by this. So that was another ethical concern that administration had. And it wasn't just faculty, it was throughout the entire educational system. We also had decision making. How was this decision making being made? And some of the common, I guess, repetitive things that we saw was that administrative and faculty wanted to make sure there was transparency and accountability, right? Two very important things. If you're going to use these systems, do individuals know this? And then accountability. Are all stakeholders involved in making the decision making, and then accountable for whatever, transcends from there? So we surveyed a few students. It was just a very small kind of open-ended question. They were business students, primarily from mixed majors, 18 to 24. We asked them a simple open-ended question. It was 56 students. What do you feel are the ethical concerns regarding AI? Can you describe them? And this is just kind of a little theme that we put together that we got from the feedback. And they had similar, similar concerns as educators did too. Job displacement, replacing people's jobs, cheating, plagiarism, right? There was all kinds of things, loss of human authenticity. But at the same time, you'll see as we move forward, they understood that the technology is there and that we need to use it. Now we talk about, classroom implementation. We know there's tons of tools. ChatGPT is the most popular one, or generative artificial intelligence. These are some of the tools you might have come across, right, in some of your teaching. So what does that mean for classroom implementation? And I think this is an area that we felt was very important, and it's policy making. What does this look like? A lot of the policy that was put together was primarily looking at plagiarism. It was really incredible. And then when you looked at the policy and they were like, okay, this is the policy if you're using AI to say rewriting a paper, and they get, it gets flagged, right? Say Turnitin and flags it. Well, at the same time, there was the big but don't accuse them of plagiarism. So we're like in this weird place that, yes, we have this policy, AI is detected that they use it, but you really can't do anything. So it was kind of, interesting at that point. We came across this amazing research done by Guymer and Edwards, and it really tied together everything that we were kind of scouring the other institutions for. And what they did was they looked at universities and high schools, and they surveyed them, and they stuck with 5 different states. And basically, they got 102 surveys back from administrators split between high schools and universities. And some of the information they got they found that universities were definitely doing a lot more than high schools. That's one thing. This really only started last year where universities were addressing this. They noticed there was very few policies, and most of the time was for chat GPT and image generating. And the main thing was plagiarism. So they asked universities in high schools, like what were the top things? And they said it was plagiarism, accountability, and student privacy. So one question they had, and of course their survey was a lot more, but 2 questions that stuck out. It was like, what areas of policy should have a focus? Ethical considerations was one, stopping plagiarism, always there, ensuring student safety and compliance with regulations, and then so on. And this also aligned with a lot of what other universities were putting out there on their websites. Then it said what support and resources are needed, right? Policies. So policies and guidelines, professional development, and so forth. So those were the top 2. So we are aware as educators that we need to have these things. And again, that's just kind of repeating. So they recognize that, that we need more collaboration. We need to start to kind of really decide what we want to do with our policies, and not only create policies, but also have accountability and continuous improvement. Again, we went back to our university and we asked them, what impact do you feel AI will play in your learning and career someday? And this was some of the answers we got. They understood that AI is going to be in the workforce and it is part of it. But they did have ethical concerns around plagiarism again, using other people's work. What would copywriting look if you are using image creator and different things like that. So we have just a couple of challenges that we came across that we were able to get from the data and the research. There is a lack of academic discussion, and there is a lack, obviously, of policy that we need. And a lot of it that goes around what we would consider right or wrong, essentially. But there's tons of opportunities too at the same time. There's personal learning that can come from it, adaptive learning that can come from it, and also data driven decision making. So in conclusion, AI, I think, is a great platform. I think it's here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. And Dr. Powell, I don't know if you want to add to the conclusion. I know I kind of sped through. We had a large presentation. So they should proactively, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
So if we think a little bit about the policies, one of the things that we know is definitely in the policies is in fact on plagiarism, but we also need to think a little bit about within the policy some existing tools. So for example, I do a lot with data. So I teach data analytics as my area of expertise, as well as research methods. And one of the things that there's lots of controversy about, and again, they talk about it about cheating, but it's technically not cheating. It's utilizing software tools such as the A-mouse software that is technically AI generated. You would use the A-mouse software within SPSS, a statistical tool package that will run tests, right? So SPSS runs the test for you. It gives you the results for you. In the past, right, that was considered to us to be, oh my gosh, that's plagiarism. You're not doing the calculations by hand. Think about that. But that's realistically what many people said in the past about
Mhm.
software is that, oh, they're now doing the calculations for you. So, that's cheating. The same thing evolves within when we add now AI within SPSS for AMOUS tools, is it now not only does the work for you and giving you a structural equation model and giving you at the answers in terms of running the test, but then it explains the results to you. So what are the
Mhm.
results? So you no longer now need to have to guess at what the results is. There's a nice narrative that goes along with it. So,
Mhm.
why again, going back to that software, and we're like, well, this is now, plagiarism because it's AI generated. But my question is it really AI generated? In the aspect that it's a tool used to help us to understand a very difficult topic, such as statistics. So a lot of that within our policy, not only is it going to be on plagiarism, cheating, but it's also going to be on the tools and the applications and the benefits in terms of how we look at it as well. So that's also, one of the things that policies need to start addressing as well, is that obviously there's tremendous amount of AI coming into all different tools and policies.
Similar to Grammarly too, I would think, right? Using it as a writing assistant. It's a really great example. Thank you. So just some future research, evaluating policy, identifying disparities, and of course, we have to always keep in mind the dependency on the technology and its impact on our students. But thank you. That was it. We did it.